Welcome on the Raysearch boost for the next webinar in our ESTRO 2025 series. I'm proud to present you the topic Advancing Brachytherapy Planning in RayStation. And we have some awesome speaker here. We have at once Tom Neeson, our technical lead for brachy and liver ablation, to show you a little bit the new features in brachytherapy and also the vision of Raysearch with brachytherapy. And we have on the other side Dr. Stefan Ecker, a researcher from the Vienna University here, and he has an awesome project about brachy robust optimization. So have fun and go.
Hello. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've done in the last year in our brachy module. We've done many things, and I think this is the first version of RayStation where we feel we have a really complete brachy module that can be used for most of the workflows that you will do in the clinic, all of the gynae workflows, but also other sides, prostate, breast, head and neck. So the first thing I can say is that from now on we support variant afterloaders, so our plans that are approved in RayStation can now be imported into ARIA Brachyvision and then sent to the afterloader. So with that we can now say we're truly vendor agnostic, so we can treat our plans on Electa, variant, and on the baby machines. Then, in the past, we focused a lot on very, advanced tools, inverse planning, EQD2 accumulation. But about 2 years ago, we realized we need the brachy to also support, the more basic planning tools, scaling doses, rotated coordinate systems. So we've done a lot of work to kind of adapt RayStation to work for, in an easier way for brachytherapy. So now we have a much more complete set of the simple planning tools that we use in brachy. One example of this is the vaginal cylinder workflow, where you create a row of points and then scale the dose to these points to really easily, without even contouring, be able to treat vag cylinder. So like I said, we can now say that RayStation that has originally been built for external beam now really works also for brachytherapy. Like I said, we now support all the other vendors, baby machines, variant, and Electa. I have to add, the only machine where you have true integration to send our plans directly to the afterloader is baby. So please check them out in the booth next door. What is also really nice is that, we in RayStation, we have about 100 developers that are working on RayStation. About 10 of them are working on brachy, so we're really actively developing this module. And, when customers ask for features, we will really try to implement them and, make brachy better and really try to solve the issue of the user. And that has been a long time since there was such product in brachytherapy that did that. This also means that you can have your external beam plan and your brachytherapy plan in one system. So you have your brachytherapy dose and your external beam dose. You can convert them to EQD2 and then sum them, and then really, co-plan the external beam and the brachytherapy. And then we also bring some advanced features. So we have the EQD2 clinical goals. You can also convert 3D dose distributions to 3D EQD2 distributions and then compare with previously treated plans. We also have scripting, so anything that's possible in the UI, you can also script. So if you want to automate your workflow, you can use the Python-based scripting interface. And then lastly, we also now have a Monte Carlo dose computation. So if you have a plan on CT, we take into account the image information on the CT to compute the Monte Carlo dose. I should add that this is currently only possible with the Bayvik sources, and then in 2026 we will also add the variant and the Electa sources. So for now it's Monte Carlo with the Bayvik sources. But then we also look at the future. So now we are happy with our module as it is now. We have a complete module, but how are we now going to make brachytherapy planning modern, and how are we going to make it state of the art? because that's kind of what we do at RayStation. And here I think the key word really is automation. So I think we spent a lot of time, up to 45 minutes an hour to plan a cervix case, sometimes even with 2 people in parallel that segment in one system and then reconstruct the applicators in the other system just to win time. And I think where we have to go is that all of this is automated. So we want to have a DLS model for female pelvic with applicators inserted so that you don't spend too much time on segmenting. We also want automatic alignment of the applicators, both on CT and on MR, and also automatic reconstructions of the needle. So I think that there we have the most time to win currently, and this is really what we're focusing on for the future. But then also, I mean, we really believe that we can make inverse planning also work for brachytherapy. To have an optimization problem that can give you really a clinical deliverable plan without having to manually tweak it. So we're also working on, improving the inverse planning, and then also take into account the external beam that was pre-treated in the inversely planned dose. And then lastly, we're also thinking and working a lot about in robustness in brachy. So these are currently things that we do take into account in brachytherapy robustness. We think about the ogre motion, we think about are the needles shifting, what are my uncertainties, but sadly we're not, explicitly taking this into account during the planning. We're just thinking, I want smooth dwell time distributions, I don't want to activate a needle that's too close to my sigmoid. But we think that we should model this robustness directly in the treatment planning system, and not have these qualitative arguments in the back of your head. We should compute the robustness and create a robust plan from automatic inverse planning. And that's where Stefan will come in. We have done a project together with AKH in Vienna here on robustness with organ simulation, organ motion simulation. So taking into account, the movement of the organs and making a plan robust against that. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Okay, thanks everyone for joining this session, and thank you, Tom and Raysearch, for inviting me to present this talk. So I gave this talk yesterday, one of the sessions, and this comes out of a research project between Raysearch Laboratories at the Department of Radiation Oncology at the Medical University of Vienna, where I'm currently employed as a postdoctoral researcher. And so Tom already explained, the topic of this talk is the robust evaluation of our brachytherapy treatment plans using simulated organ motion. I want to start this talk with giving a delicious analogy of why we need robustness. So most of you know that oftentimes treatment planning is like me trying to bake a delicious cake. I may have a very good plan in the beginning, but then during baking or delivery, things can go wrong. In this case, my baking skills, and what you end up in reality is something quite different than what you planned for. So a more formal definition and the theme of robustness in general is plan for perfection, but prepare for reality. And in short, robustness can be described as the plan's resilience to uncertainties. And in brachytherapy, the two major uncertainties that we have are, first of all, the setup uncertainty, which is the registration of the dose delivery device, in this case our applicator with the patient anatomy. And in brachytherapy, this is, of course, done via applicator reconstruction. And the second major uncertainty are the dynamic organ motions that are depicted in this schematic graph here. And of course, these lead to variations between the actually planned and delivered dose, or also the intrafraction motion that we have to deal with and take into account when we want to deliver a robust plan. And interestingly, while the robust concepts are quite established for proton or particle therapy, there has not been a widespread adoption to brachytherapy, even though they share quite similar characteristics, especially the steep dose gradient and the high precision that is required. So you have an inherent risk of overdosing organs at risk that are very close by to your implant. Of course, as Tom already mentioned, we already take these uncertainties into account when we do our plan. Although we do it more or less implicitly, a lot of it happens in our head, and this is reflected in some basic planning principles that we use in gynecological brachytherapy. For example, you would not load a needle that is very close to an organ at risk with a very high dwell time. And also you start from a standard dose distribution that gives you this pear-shaped isodose, and then you deliver the bulk of the radiation with the intrauterine and the vaginal part of the applicator. And you only steer or shape the dose distribution with your needles. But what's missing currently is there's no standardized workflow to really put numbers on this. So we have no method for a quantitative evaluation of our plan robustness. We evaluate our plan quality in the dosimetric sense, but in a robustness sense. So what would be quite nice to have is some form of robust evaluation that's also agnostic to how the plan was created. So I could feed even a normal plan, a manual forward plan, but also a plan that was created by an inverse optimization algorithm into it. And so the objective for this work was that we use a RayStation module for robust treatment plan evaluation for brachytherapy. You can see a screenshot here on the right, and evaluate some of our HDR brachytherapy cases that we delivered clinically, and quantify our uncertainties that we have by simulating hypothetical organ motion for our organs at risk. So this is the very simple concept of what we did in this study. We import a clinical plan, then we specify in a configuration file the simulated organ shifts, and then we end up with a new synthetic deformed image. And on this image, we can then re-evaluate our clinical dose distribution and see how the organ motion affected our actual GVH parameters. And now for some more details, so this was a retrospective study with 10 HDR plans from 5 patients. All of them were treated here with MR image-guided adaptive brachytherapy with state-of-the-art treatment protocols. And then the rest of the work happened all in RayStation with an automated script. And what this script did was, first of all, it deformed it applied the deformations one organ at a time. The only restriction we had is that we left the implant and the target volumes as fixed. And then for the respective organs, we simulated different shifts in the 6 cardinal directions with 0.5, 1, and 2 centimeters. So in the end, for each line, we ended up with an additional 54 simulated image sets or movement scenarios that we can then evaluate. We did this evaluation based on the DVH metric for the hotspots in the D2CC by calculating the absolute percent difference per millimeter between the clinical and the shifted scenario. Okay, so now some results. You can see here on the left column is the nominal images, the ones we use clinically, and then on the right you can see some of the simulated organ shifts. So for example, at the top, you can see that we shifted in the bladder by 10 millimeters in posterior anterior direction. And what's especially important to mention that you see this especially in the bowel, that this is not a rigid shift, but really a fluid and deformable deformation of the entire organ. So what did we find? You can see here response plots, of course, what we expected, that the larger the shift that we simulated, the larger are the actual variations that we observed. And you can see here also that in posterior anterior direction, the shifts were the greatest, which is also as expected and which is also confirmed from prior literature. And then as an example, I have here a table where you can see what impact this simulated shift had on the total treatment dose in EQD2. This is the last column, so this takes into account EBRT plus the brachytherapy boost. And you can see that, for example, for bladder, this would mean an additional 5% in total EQD2 and for bowel 2%. So where does this leave us? In our opinion, this organ motion simulation is a quite powerful tool which could move the field forward to a more quantitative evaluation of our plan robustness. But of course, there's still much to do. First of all, what numbers do you put into the configuration file? Is it now 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters? This is also, of course, the next challenge. This needs to be quantified, ideally from a population-based data, or we can also think about moving to a patient-specific approach. And then, of course, in the long run, the goal is not just to stick to robust evaluation, but we want actual robust optimization of our plans, which of course is something I think that RayStation is very well equipped to handle, and we're looking forward to see what you come up with and continue working with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much also for these excellent presentations from both speakers. Any questions to that? Tom, I have a question too. That you mentioned that it's quite possible to have an integrated workflow, brachytherapy and radiation therapy or external therapy. Can you describe that a little bit better? Is everything seamless working? Can you use all the tools that you have here? How is about the form of the image registration and so on?
So the current state is that you cannot yet take the external beam dose as a background dose to the brachytherapy plan. So that would kind of be the ultimate goal to, plan your external beam, and then take your planning image for the brachytherapy, create a deformable registration between the external beam image set and the brachytherapy image set to really in 3D move over your dose from the external beam to the brachytherapy plan. And I think we can take a similar approach as in re-irradiation, where we, on a structure by structure level, decide, do I trust my deformation field, or do I want to, in the old way, just sum the clinical goals or sum the DVH values? So I think that will in the end be the workflow that you, create a deformation per structure, decide, do I trust my deformation, or do I do it the old way? And in that way, really, plan the brachytherapy taking into account the external beam. And the same way you can do this between the brachytherapy image set. So you create your first plan for the first 2 fractions, taking into account just the external beam, and then the 3rd and the 4th fraction, you take into account also the pre-treated brachytherapy in the same way, moving over the dose values. Do this preferably in EQD2, maybe even inversely plan on EQD2 directly to really not have to work in Excel sheets besides RayStation. That would be the end goal of all of this.
Perfect. If there are not any other questions, there's one.
I'm wondering, do you have any feedback from center that worked before, like the MDs doing the contour on one session and maybe RayStation, and you start planning on Central?
Yeah.
Now they cannot work at the same time. You say without with everything you have not the same time, but you have a feedback on those clinics that went that way to see if it was really almost the same time or if it takes longer to the process.
So you mean if segmenting in RayStation and then planning in another system in parallel and then merging your plans, if that actually saves time? So I think it does save time. That's why people are doing it. And I think that is, I mean, the reason why some clinics are cautious to move over to RayStation fully, because you will have to do those workflows sequentially. So that's why we have to really focus on automating, I mean, the segmentation. That's why we're working on the DLS model for version 2026. We hope to come out with the female pelvic DLS model and to also come out with an automatic alignment of the applicator. So by taking away the time it takes to segment and reconstruct, we can move to one system and not have to work parallel. Because there's obviously also overhead in I mean, merging the plans and sending them over, and this we should ultimately get rid of. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, how many centers are clinically using rapid planning?
The planning part 0. Yeah, we're looking for our first center, but we're ready now. So the first of 2025 came out last week, and this is really the first version where we believe, I mean, we have the full package for brachytherapy planning and the clinical, co-clinical. So soon, hopefully.
Exactly, and I think that's a good conclusion right now. If you want to see the full package, don't hesitate to go and book a demo, even here or online. We are happy to see you in the booth and also later in any demonstration. Thank you very much for your...